Hi, I'm Chris Tiller. I'm with Russ Lyons Sotheby's Realty, and today we're going to be talking about making a contingent offer. So you're a buyer, and we're getting ready to make some offers on houses, and we're going to be talking about contingencies. So a contingency. So a contingency is a stipulation within a contract that is basically going to allow you to get out of the contract without any repercussions. So when we have to put earnest money down, so usually 1% or whatever's been negotiated in a contract, it's flexible. It allows you to get that back outside of the inspection period with no repercussion. So what kind of contingencies are there? So there is an inspection contingency that basically says that you get the right to inspect the property and feel comfortable with it moving forward, and you can cancel during that time frame for whatever you find in the house. Now, you certainly don't want to go to under contract with a house that you don't like, but theoretically you could cancel for anything. So if you don't like the color of the grass or a doorknob doesn't close right, you could easily get out of it. It's a pretty low risk commitment up front during the inspection. Now, nobody wants to waste anyone's time, and you certainly don't want to incur any expenses during that time. So feel like you love the house before you make an offer. So the other contingency is the appraisal contingency. So an appraisal contingency is where the bank that you are financing through has the right to appraise the house and come up with a value that's equal to or greater than what you're under contract for. If it doesn't appraise for that, you don't have to buy it. So certainly you can always negotiate with the seller to make up the difference in the appraisal number. So if it comes in low by $3,000, you can pay the extra as the buyer. The listing owner could come down $3,000, meet somewhere in the middle. But if nobody can come to an agreement, the contingency kicks in and you're allowed to cancel the contract and get your earnest money back. So that's another contingency. The one that we're going to be talking about mostly today is going to be the sale contingency of another home. So this is becoming more common now. Back in the crash, when it was just REO and bank-owned properties, most people didn't have a home that they owned. They were renting. They didn't have anything they needed to sell because nothing could be sold. Most of the values had decreased to the point where you couldn't, or it was a short sale, and that was a different process. So today we're going to be talking about the sale contingency. So let's say you have a house that you're living in now, you own it, and you have equity in the house that you need to use for the down payment of your next house. So we're going out and we're making offers on these houses. The contingency means that you can't close on your new house until you sell the other house. And there are different levels of contingencies, so of sale contingencies. So there are, I have to sell this, I haven't listed it yet, so that's one aspect, or you're under contract and it needs to close. So those are the two major ones. So where are we at in the process of the sale that you need to do in order to close on the next one? So if you are not yet listed, obviously that's a different type of contingency. So from a seller's perspective, you can imagine that isn't looked at as well. If you're under contract, there's a lot less risk. So they know that obviously you've hit the market, you've solicited buyers, you've gone through the marketing process and photos, and you have somebody willing to buy the house, and you're under contract. Much less risk. Then there's some specifics about that. So are we under contract? And then at what point are we under contract? Have you gone through the appraisal? Have you gone through inspections and gone through these high risk situations where most buyers would back out? If you're through inspections and you're through appraisal, the dropout rate is very low. So that makes your contingency extremely strong and very low risk from a seller's perspective. It's obviously not as good as no contingency, but it's the best case scenario. So in this market where you have a very high seller's market, contingencies are very difficult. So starting from the top, if you have not sold your property yet, you're not even on the market, but you need to sell it prior to making an offer, it's very, very difficult to get a seller to agree to that. There's a bunch of different reasons, but they can't control any of your process. They can't control when you list, they can't control your list price, they can't control how willing you are to show the house, what offer you're willing to take, how aggressive you're going to be negotiating, what your close date is. They are in zero control. They don't know anything about your house, your neighborhood, your comps, any of that. So it's high risk, and we're in a big seller's market. So why would they take the risk of going off market to go under contract with you when they can't control the process that you haven't even started yet? So it's a very difficult part. Now, if you have a house that hasn't been listed that has been listed for a while, a year, maybe some of the higher end stuff or unique property, acreage type stuff that's been on the market a long time, they might be more willing to work with you if you have a good agent that can explain that process. Now, if you're under contract, it's going to take some finagling. So it's going to take your agent explaining to the listing agent that, listen, I'm under contract. We haven't gone through inspections or appraisals, but here's the pictures of the house. Here's an inspection that maybe we did up front. Here's the value compared to all the comps, and justifying where they're at to kind of help the seller's agent, or the listing agent, and the owner feel comfortable about where you're at in the process. Obviously, if you're through inspections and appraisals, that's pretty self-explanatory. That basically means we're just waiting for this date to close. The only thing that could really impact that would be, for instance, a financing contingency on their end, where if they lose their job, they get a divorce, they go lease a Ferrari and they shouldn't have, and now they can't get financing, then they would fall out. So that's a risk that's always there. But again, it's a very low risk. So that's a contingency. How to overcome that is basically just having a strong agent, understanding your position specifically and justifying each circumstance. So if you haven't listed yet, explain why. Well, we haven't listed because we haven't found a house that we like. Now that we like it, here's the house we're trying to sell. And here's why it's going to sell in 48 hours, because it's a selling market. Depending on the situation, that might be understandable and everybody might be on the same page. So again, overcoming each contingency specific to which situation you're in and which process you've started is a big piece of it. Now, the new one that we're seeing is people that are waiving contingencies. So you can waive a contingency. You can waive an appraisal contingency, an inspection contingency, a financing contingency. You can waive all of these and basically say, regardless of the outcome, I'm going to buy this house. And so that really makes it competitive and basically puts you in line with other offers that are not contingent. You wouldn't have to write the contingency on there, but you would be unable to cancel for it. So let's say you needed to sell your house. You thought it was going to sell very, very quickly. You make an offer on a house that you love, then list your house, but you've waived the contingency on your purchase. But let's say the house that you need to sell doesn't sell. You can't unilaterally cancel the other contract just outright because you didn't sell the other house, because you've waived that contingency. So you would be at risk of losing your escrow money. Now, this might be something that you have to do in order to be competitive with other offers that are either cash or don't have a contingency or have also waived it. So that's a new one that you might want to talk with your agent about on your comfort level of that. It may impact what escrow money you're willing to risk. And there's just some details that would need to be ironed out, but it's a strong way to be competitive in this market. The other issue is, what situations does a contingency put you in? So let's say you have to sell your house. Let's say the house that let's say you want to be aggressive and you want to get your house under contract. The problem is, if you get your house under contract, you've agreed to a date, an end date. This is when I'm going to sell and close my house. It's part of a contract. The problem is, you have now locked yourself into buying whatever inventory is currently on the market. So if you don't want to go rent, you don't want a transitional house with family or any of the other options that a lot of people take advantage of, and you say, listen, we have to move into our next house on X date, but we haven't bought anything yet. You're going to be at the mercy of whatever is currently on the market. You may not find anything that you like. So if inventory is down, which it is right now, again, you're going to be held hostage to anything that's currently on the market. It creates a little bit of an issue and a tight constraint. If it's interim housing, you're only going to be in it for 2 years. There's a lot of reasons why that might not be an issue for you, but it is something to think about. The other issue is, if you don't find anything, you're going to be homeless. You're going to get kicked out of your house. So are you willing to rent? Do you want to rent? Do you have rental options? This stuff needs to be thought about beforehand. Obviously, you have to get moving trucks. You have to have a rental agreement set in place. You have to have a plan and a structured in time enough to make all this stuff go smooth. So again, it's just understanding what a contingent offer is, being ahead of the curve and trying to understand how to combat the issues, and then playing into account what your options are as a buyer on how to move forward and make sure that it's the most convenient and structured one for your situation. For instance, kids are going to play a big factor. You certainly don't want to move 4 times with children in and out of school districts if you have kids in school. Same thing with jobs. I mean, there's a lot of factors that come in, but kids is an easy one to play off of. So again, just making sure that it fits with your situation, talking with your agent, knowing that they feel comfortable with contingent offers, and how to make the one most strong and appropriate for your situation. If you have any questions, please let me know. We can talk about contingencies as much as you'd like. We can always bring in the lender. They're a great resource on contingencies. We may be able to waive these. You may be able to qualify for both mortgages. There's a lot of options out there, but we certainly can't make those decisions without all of your input. So please call me with anything and we'll go from there. That's Contingent Offers.